turn recording on. So I almost forgot there. I'll record this starting at this point. So if you want to review this, I'll put a link to the video for this meeting on the Latin grammar course page, either under parts of speech or on the student forum. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to walk through John 1 through 5 and identify which part of speech each word is and talk about it a little bit so you get more comfortable with that. And it doesn't matter what lesson you're on. I'm pretty sure that no student in Latin Reading 1 can do this very well. So we're going to work on it together. And if you're just getting started and I move a little fast for you, it's okay because you can review this video. And as you go through the lessons, these video recordings will be available so you can catch up and move along at your own pace. But let's get started here. So I'll open up John chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. And you know that in the lesson exposition, you know that I tell you, you can see this, I tell you what part of speech each word is. I might not spell it correctly, but I tell you anyway. So preposition, substantive noun, verb, substantive noun, conjunction. So I always tell you what part of speech the words are, but I don't want to do that. I want you to be able to know what part of speech each word is. You shouldn't have to rely on me to tell you. So let's walk through these words and we'll try identifying the part of speech, and I'll flip back and forth so we can look at the definitions, and we'll use the process of elimination to work through it. And I'll make sure that the chat box is open so you guys can share your answers. Okay, so to get started, right at the top of the lesson, the very first word is the Latin word in, and we know it means in, but don't guess or type anything until I say so. This word in, let me ask you a simple yes or no question. Ready? The word in, are there different forms of the word in Latin? Are there different forms? Yes or no? No, the answer is no. Okay, there are no different forms of the word in. Now, the reason why that's important is because we said that the first four parts of speech have different forms. The second four parts of speech don't have different forms. So when we know that a certain word doesn't have different forms, then we know it can only be one of these last four parts of speech. So it makes it easy for us to narrow our options. Okay, so let's go through them. And what I want you to do here, I know you already may know the answer, but I want you to look at the definitions and understand how to use the process of elimination, like I said, to identify the parts of speech. Okay, so first of all, think of the Latin word in. A preposition is a part of speech which is set before other parts of speech. Let me ask you, in our reading, is the word in set before another part of speech? Yes or no? Yes, it's set before principio, right? So if we're using the process of elimination, in can be a preposition. So let's just keep a note of that, all right? There's one option. It might be a preposition. Second, an adverb. An adverb is a part of speech which, added to verbs, explains and defines the meaning of them. Is the word in added to a verb? Yes or no? In our reading, was the word in added to a verb to clarify its meaning? No. So we'll cross adverb off the list. Interjection. An interjection is a part of speech which indicates various affections of the soul or emotions. Does the word in express an emotion or an affection of the soul? Yes or no? No. That's off. A conjunction is a part of speech that connects or orders the parts of a sentence. Yes or no? No. Good. So we only have one option that's even possible, and it's preposition, and that's the right answer. Okay, so in is a preposition, and you can see that we use the definitions of the prepositions to go through the process of elimination and determine which part of speech the word in is. So if you have a piece of paper, just jot down in and write that it's a preposition. And just sort of keep, it's okay if there's sloppy notes. You're not going to need to do anything with these notes, but just keep some notes for yourself if you can. If you can't, it's not that important, but if you can, it will be helpful. Okay, so the word in is a preposition, and it's because in the sentence, it has to be set before another word. And there's two different ways. It can either be set before it as a separate word, or it can actually be connected to the word. We call it a prefix or a prefix in English. Sometimes they're joined to the words, but they're often kept separate. So in is a preposition. So now, not only do you know why I said it's a preposition here in the lesson, or I should say, now you know that it's a preposition, you also know why it's a preposition. Okay, so in is a preposition. All right, so next let's look at the word principio. Principio is the second word here, and give me a yes or no. Can the word principio have different forms? Can the word principio have different forms? Yes or no? Yes. Yes, it can have different forms. If we look it up in a dictionary, if you look principio up in a dictionary, you won't find it because this is not the nominative case form of the noun. So principio can have other forms, and the reason why that's important, that's our first question always, is that means it must be one of the first four parts of speech, since it can have different forms, okay? So let's go ahead and go through these definitions and use the process of elimination to figure out what part of speech principio is. First, a noun. Yeah, that's right, Grace. Preposition, the word pre actually means before, and position means place. Good. All right, so let's look at principio. Is it a noun? A noun is a part of speech which has case and does not signify time. Now, this is going to be really confusing, and it's sort of funny that in God's providence, this is the first word we get in our lesson. It says that a noun does not signify time, and yet we have this word principio, which means what? What does principio mean? What does principio mean? Beginning, good. Now, you can read that definition and say, wait a minute, beginning is a time. So the word beginning means time. So a noun is a part of speech that has case and does not signify time. So I guess principio must not be a noun because it signifies time. But that's not what the definition means, all right? And it's, like I said, it's funny that the first word we look at is a name of time, a time when, but it doesn't signify time. What that definition means for a noun is that the forms of the word, the different forms of the word signify times. Okay, so if you think about the word sum, it means I am, it's present. The word eram, it means I was, it's past. The different forms signify time, different times. So when it says does not signify time, it doesn't mean that the word itself might not name a certain time, like the beginning, but it means that the different forms of the word don't allow it to signify different times. Maybe that definition needs to be made even more clear. So the first part of speech we have here is a noun is a part of speech which has case. Does a noun have case? Yes or no? Does a noun have case? Yes or no? Yes, it does. Okay, a noun, the word principio does have case. Now, as soon as we know that it has case, we know that it can't be a verb, right? Because verbs do not have case. So we can cross verb off the list. A noun is a part of speech which has case, and the different cases do not signify time. Is that true of principio? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes, 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 that's right. Good. Okay, so principio can be a noun. Let's look at the second option, a pronoun. A pronoun is a part of speech which, in the place of a noun, signifies a certain person or thing. Is the word principio standing in the place of a noun? No, very good. So it can't be a pronoun. We said that principio cannot be a verb. Why did we say that principio cannot be a verb? Why can principio not be a verb? This is going to test who was paying attention. Why can principio not be a verb? Let's see who can get it. I'll give you 20 seconds. Nope, not because it's not an action. Not because anything with time. Good, Zachary got it. Zachary said it has no case, okay? So look at Zachary's response there. He says it has no cases, okay? I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Yeah, verbs, what we have to be clear there. Verbs have no cases, okay? So principio has a case, therefore it can't be a verb, all right? So verb is off the list. Lastly, number 4. A participle is a part of speech which has cases and tenses. Does principio have cases and tenses? Yes or no? No, it doesn't. So participles off the list. So we're left with only one option. Principio must be a noun. Okay? Principio must be a noun. So on your scratch paper there, just write principio and mark that it's a noun. Okay. So now, yes or no, ready? Yes or no? Do you see how to use the process of elimination to identify a part of speech? Yes or no? You should, okay? Now, it's very slow. It's very slow because I'm going through it slowly on purpose. If I was doing this by myself, I would already have an idea of a couple options that might be true, and I would only pay attention to those. But we're going through all of them nice and slow so you can see exactly how to go through. We can go through the parts of speech. Yeah, Abigail, when you say tense, tense is just an English word that means time. That's all that it means. So the different tenses of a verb, present tense, it just means time, past tense, time, okay? So tense just means the time that's signified by different forms of a word. All right. So let's go on to the next word in John chapter 1. We have the word erat. Okay? So let's take the word erat and go back to our parts of speech. First question, does the word erat have different forms? Does the word erat have different forms? Yes or no? We've got some yes and no and a question mark. That's good, okay? If this is the first lesson you've ever studied, you don't even know, right? You have no idea. You could say, how can I know if there's different forms? It's the first time I ever saw this word. Well, if you don't know if it has other forms, well, then it's hard to identify parts of speech. And that's why students have a hard time identifying parts of speech. But here's an easy trick. If you take a word like erat and look it up in the dictionary, if you look it up in the Latin dictionary, you won't find it. The word erat will not be in a Latin dictionary. And the reason why is because it has different forms. So that's a very easy trick. If you're not sure if a word has different forms, there's a very easy solution. Look it up in a dictionary. If you can't find the word in the dictionary, then it has different forms. It's that simple, okay? So that's an easy trick. If we look up the word erat in a dictionary, and what I'll do here real quick is I'll open up, give me 1 second, and I'll open up a dictionary for, I won't do it now, it'll take too much time. Anyway, I'll be the dictionary, and I'll tell you that erat is not in the dictionary. So it must have different forms, and that tells us that it must be one of these first 4 parts of speech. Okay, erat. Keep in mind erat. Jot it down on your paper. E-R-A-T. Erat. So first of all, can it be a noun? A noun is a part of speech which has cases and does not signify time. Now, again, if you're just getting started, you have no idea, right? So in the process of elimination, you can't eliminate any of the parts of speech, and that's what makes it difficult, okay? But And it's good. Samuel wrote maybe on there. He didn't spell it right, but he wrote maybe. So maybe is good. So anytime that we have a maybe answer, if it may be, we just leave that as one of the options. So we're trying to eliminate as many as we can. So we look at erat. Now we have another source of help, and another source of help we have is we have the translation that we're studying, right? So we have in principio erat. What does erat mean? What does erat mean? Was. Good. Okay, so erat means was. So that can help us to identify the part of speech because we know its meaning. We know what it's doing in the sentence, okay? So does the word erat signify time? Yes, it does. Okay, yes, erat signifies time. But we're not really sure, so let's just leave noun. We'll leave noun. We don't know, like we said maybe, okay? Pronoun, the second option. A pronoun is a part of speech which stands in the place of a noun. Does the word erat stand in the place of a noun, yes or no? No. So it obviously is not a pronoun, okay? Third, a verb is a part of speech which has moods and tenses and is not declined into cases. So there's no nominative case, genitive case, dative case. Now, here's another trick for identifying whether a word has cases. If you know what the cases are, like nominative, genitive, dative, you know that each case has a translation in English, right? What does the genitive case mean in English? How do we translate a genitive case in English? Who knows that? Good, Abigail, that's right. Of, apostrophe S, that's good, okay? So the genitive case expresses possession, and we translate it in English as of, like this is the birthplace of Saint Dominic, something like that, okay? So the genitive case expresses possession. Good. Does the word erat have a translation like the cases? Does it have can it be in a form, you think, where it has of erat? No, that makes no sense. Don't guess, just take your time and think, okay? So if we think about the meaning of the word, we'll see that it can't be translated with the meanings of cases. I'll give you another question. The dative case in Latin, how does it translate into English? How do we translate the dative case into English? Good, Abigail, 2 or 4, okay? 2 or 4, good. Okay, so if a word like domino is in the dative case, it means to the Lord or for the Lord. So the cases have translations, and if we don't see that translation here, then we can know that it doesn't have cases, okay? So we know that a pronoun is off the list. We're not sure about the noun, but now we can, if we think about how to identify cases, we can start to say, okay, I think that noun is not right. We have verb. A verb is a part of speech which has moods. You may not know what that means, so ignore it for now. And tenses, times, and is not declined into cases. Well, we know now that erat is not declined into the different cases, okay? Noun is, erat is not declined into different cases. So it may be a verb. So we're going to leave verb on the list. And then lastly, the fourth one, a participle is a part of speech which has both cases and tenses. So does erat have cases? Yes or no? No. Good. Very good. Okay, some of you are showing off. Good. No. All right, so all we really have left is a verb. So erat is a verb. Why is it a verb? Because it is not declined into cases. It has different forms. It has different forms. We can tell that by looking it up in a dictionary because it's not there. So it must have different forms, but it's not declined into cases. We can tell it's not declined into cases because the other meanings of the different cases can't be true of this word. So we've used the process of elimination and 2 tricks to figure out that erat is a verb. The 2 tricks are, first, look a word up in a dictionary. If the word is not in the dictionary, it must have other cases, or other forms, I should say. So look a word up in a dictionary. If you see it's not in the dictionary, it has other forms, and it must be one of the first four parts of speech. And then secondly, if you know how the cases translate into English, of something, to or for something, from something, and so on, and you learn this in Latin grammar. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's because you haven't studied Latin grammar. If you're in the classical grammar course, it does talk about cases and does explain this. So maybe you just need to go back and review lessons on cases, okay? So there's two tricks to identifying verbs. You can tell if it has different forms by looking up in a dictionary, and you can tell if it has cases by asking if the different translation of the cases could be true for that word. And if they can't, then it must be a verb, all right? So we identified erat as a verb. And one of you actually said it's a copulative verb. So now you're getting fancy and showing off a little bit. That's true. It's a copulative verb, okay? We learned that in elementary grammar and classical grammar. So you're kind of cheating, bringing in that stuff into Latin class. If you're in Latin reading or Latin grammar, you might not see that word copulative, but it comes from English grammar, okay? Next up, the next word we have is verbum, verbum, all right? The word verbum. So jot that word down, verbum. Verbum. And we've got to identify the part of speech. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, does the word verbum have different forms, yes or no? Does the word verbum have different forms, yes or no? And it does. It does have different forms, okay? It does have different forms. That means it must be one of the first four parts of speech. All right, so now we have to ask, the second question we can ask is, does it express time? Do those different forms express time, yes or no? If verbum has different forms, do those forms express different times? The answer is no, okay? So it can't be a verb, and it can't be a participle. It can't be a verb, it can't be a participle, because it doesn't express different times in its different forms. So it's got to be a noun or a pronoun. A noun is a part of speech that has cases and does not signify time. Can verbum be a noun, yes or no? Yes, 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 good. All right. A pronoun is a part of speech which stands in the place of a noun. Does verbum stand in the place of a noun? Yes or no? No, no, no. Very good. So verbum must be what? What part of speech must verbum be? A noun. Very good. Now, if you look at the Latin reading lesson, and you can see that, you know, I have this this wonderful skill of misspelling words when I'm making lessons. I think it's to humble me and keep me humble. It should say substantive noun. Of course, the example that I pull up has typos and it says substantive noun, whatever that means. But it should say substantive noun, okay? Now, if you look at the list of the 8 parts of speech, substantive is not on that list. So why in the world did I put that in the lesson if it's not in the list of the parts of speech? And here's why. In English, parts of speech can be a little confusing because in English, we treat substantives and adjectives as 2 different parts of speech. Okay, so sometimes kids come into Latin class and they've already studied some English grammar, and they learn that substantives or substantives might just be called nouns, and then adjectives are called adjectives. And so it looks like there are nouns and adjectives as 2 different parts of speech, but really nouns and adjectives are 2 different kinds. I'm sorry, let me make that clear. Substantives and adjectives are 2 different kinds of nouns, all right? So to take away any confusion in the lesson, I write that it's a substantive noun or it's an adjective noun, okay? So that's why it says substantive. But anyway, What matters is that verbum, we identified it as a substantive noun, and this is not how you spell substantive. So if you're scratching things down, don't copy this spelling or you'll look crazy like I do in some of these lessons, okay? Verbum is substantive noun, and it means the word. So we've got that one. Next up, the word et. So jot the word et down. The word et. Now, if you looked up the word et in a dictionary, if you look up the word et in a dictionary, do you think that you would find the word et in the dictionary? Yes or no? Yes, some people say no. Okay, so you would. If you look up the word et, et, in a dictionary, a Latin dictionary, maybe I should have said Latin. Maybe you thought I meant English dictionary, and you're being very technical. I meant Latin dictionary. If you look it up in a Latin dictionary, the word et would be in the dictionary because it has only one form. All right, there's only one form. And that means that it cannot be a noun, pronoun, verb, or participle. It has to be one of the last four parts of speech. So let's put it to the test here and see what we can figure out. The word et, and you know it means and because we have the translation already. So it means and. Preposition. A preposition is a part of speech which generally is set before other parts of speech, either separately or conjunctly. Is the word et set before other parts of speech separately or conjunctly? No, it's not. Okay, no, it's not set before. Sometimes it's set after, right? I can say this and that. So and can be set after a word, not just before a word. All right, so it's not necessarily set before other parts of speech. Next, an adverb is a part of speech which is added to verbs to explain and define their meaning. Does the word et get added to a verb to add more detail to its meaning? No, it doesn't. Interjection. An interjection is a part of speech that indicates various affections of the soul or emotions. Does the word et express emotions? Do we use the word et to express emotions? No, very good. So we're left with only one option, and that's a conjunction. A conjunction is a part of speech that connects or orders the parts of a sentence. So if I say this and that, the word and is connecting those two parts of the sentence. It's a conjunction, all right? So et is a conjunction. Moving on. The next word in our reading, we have verbum again, and we've already identified verbum, so that's we can skip that one. That's easy. Erat is next. We've already identified erat as a verb, so we can skip that one. And we then come to this word apud, apud. And if you look at the translation, you know that apud is joined together with deum to mean what? What does apud deum mean? Apud deum. Apud deum. What does apud deum mean? With God, with God, with God, with God. Good. Okay. It means with God. So now let's identify the part of speech. Take this word apud, and let me ask you this. If you look up the word apud in a Latin dictionary, do you think the word apud will be in the Latin dictionary? Yes, it will. Okay, so it likely doesn't have lots of different forms. So if we're going to take a guess, we're going to move to the second set of four parts of speech, which don't have more than one form. So we're going to use process of elimination for apud in apud deum, with God. A preposition is a part of speech which is generally set before other parts of speech, either separately or conjunction. Could apud be a preposition? Yes or no? I see some of you are trying to leapfrog me here. You don't like the process and are just getting to the answer. And that's fine, but it doesn't always work. So let's just walk through it. So apud can be a preposition. An adverb is a part of speech added to verbs to explain and define the meaning of them. Does the word apud get added to verbs to explain their meaning? Nope. It's not an adverb. An interjection is a part of speech which indicates various affections of the soul. Does the word apud, which means with, express different affections of the soul? No. No, not an interjection. And lastly, a conjunction is a part of speech that connects or orders the parts of a sentence. Does the word apud connect different parts of a sentence? No. Well, you can say yes. I saw James wrote yes. It doesn't connect different parts of a sentence. It can be used by itself. And the other way to tell that it's not a conjunction is a preposition is often connected to the word itself as a prefix to express the meaning of the preposition. So going through those, okay, we might say, well, we have to choose between a preposition and a conjunction. All right. So maybe you're confused by the fact that it looks like apud might connect things together because it goes before a word and feels like it kind of orders the sentence a little bit. So you leave conjunction as an option. You've got to choose between preposition and conjunction. Which is the better choice? Preposition or conjunction? Preposition. Good. All right, so apud is a preposition, and then we have the word deum. So let's do one more here. It's 138. We've got time for another word. Actually, we'll do two more words because I want to do another part of speech. Deum. If you look up deum in a Latin dictionary, would you find deum in the dictionary? D-E-U-M. Would you find deum in a dictionary? The answer is no, you would not find deum. What would you find in the dictionary? Who knows what you would actually find? What would you find? Good, deus. Deus is what you would find because deus is the nominative case. Okay, deus is the basic form of the noun and deum is a different form. So if you look up deum in a dictionary, you won't find deum there, and that's a hint that it has different forms. Okay, so it's got to be one of the first four parts of speech. So we're trying to find which part of speech deum is. And this is a pretty easy one. I hope that by now we've done 5 or 6 words. I hope it's starting to get easier. Is it starting to get easier? Yes or no? Yeah, I hope it's starting to get easier. You see, it's not as confusing as it first seems. It's not as confusing. You start to get used to what the different parts of speech feel like, and it gets easier as you get some practice. All right. So deum. A noun is a part of speech which has case and does not signify time. Does deum signify time in any way? Does deum signify time? No. And whoever criticized me for criticizing answers, if you're not sure about the answer, you don't have to enter an answer. So if you're not sure, just don't enter anything. All right. Don't criticize me for criticizing. So first of all, we know that deum doesn't express time. So we can eliminate verb and participle. Okay, we can eliminate verb and participle. So we're left with noun and pronoun. Noun is a part of speech which has case and does not signify time. Can the word deum be a noun? Yes or no? Don't jump ahead. Yes or no? You. Yes or no? Okay, yes, good. Pronoun, a part of speech which stands in the place of a noun. Does the word deum stand in the place of a noun? Yes or no? No, very good. So we're left with only one option, and that's noun. So deum is a noun, and it's a substantive noun in the lesson. I want to do one more. These next 4 words we've already done, so we can skip them. In verse 2, we come to a different kind of word. We have the word hoc. Don't guess. We're going to go through the process here. We have the word hoc, and we're told that it means this, okay, in the translation, this. Yes, deum is a substantive noun, okay? All right, so we have the word this, hoc. So let's take a look. If you look up hoc in a Latin dictionary, will you find the word hoc in a dictionary? What do you think? Yes or no? The answer is no, you will not find hoc in a Latin dictionary because it's just one of the different forms of a certain word. All right, so you won't find it in the dictionary. That tells us that there are multiple forms of this word. So we know that it's got to be one of the first 4 parts of speech. All right, so let's go through them. Process of elimination. A noun is a part of speech which has case and does not signify time. Is it possible that hok is a noun? Does it have cases? Does it signify time? Can hok be a noun? Yes or no? Can hok be a noun? Yes or no? You're answering no, but you're wrong, because there's no reason why hok can't be a noun. Hok does meet the definition of a noun. It does have cases, and it does not signify time. So hok could be a noun. All right. Don't try to jump ahead. Use the process of elimination, because there are going to be words that are very difficult, and you're going to have to know how to use the process for those words. We don't need this process for easy ones. If we look at the definition of a noun, if we look at the definition of a noun, hok can be a noun. It's a part of speech which has cases, and it does not signify time. It could be a noun. So we'll leave noun as one of the options. Number two, a pronoun is a part of speech which can stand in the place of a noun. Is it true that the word hok can stand in the place of another noun? Yes or no? Yes or no? Good. Yes. Okay, so it can be a pronoun. Does hok signify time? Yes or no? Does hok signify time? Yes or no? Does hok signify time? No, it does not. So it cannot be a verb or a participle. It doesn't signify time. It can't be a verb or a participle. So we're left with two options, nouns and pronouns. And I want you to see that a pronoun could satisfy the definition of a noun. All right. But what helps us to identify it is that a noun can't stand in the place of a noun, but a pronoun can stand in the place of a noun. So since hok can stand in place of a noun, it must be a pronoun. All right. So the answer for hok is it's a pronoun. It's a pronoun. And yes, hok, show off, it's a demonstrative pronoun. Okay. It's a demonstrative pronoun. That's right. A demonstrative pronoun is a pronoun that points something out. So you point at it and say this. That's a demonstrative pronoun. Good. Okay, so we've identified hok as a pronoun. So once we're through that, then we've got erat again, which we know, in again, principio again, apud again, deum again. You start to see that the words repeat, and we don't need to identify and go through that process all over again. So it gets faster for us. The next word in verse 3, we'd have a bunch of new words to look at. Let's look at one more and we'll finish up here. One more important one, and we'll finish up. Let's look at facta. Okay, facta, it means made. Good. Facta means made, and if you look up facta in the Latin dictionary, will you find facta in the dictionary? Yes or no? The answer is no. You will not find facta in the dictionary because it has different forms. So we know it's got to be one of the first four parts of speech. All right, we're looking at facta and the different forms. This one means what? What does facta mean? What does facta mean? Good, made. And does made signify time? Does the word made signify time? Yes or no? Yes, it does. Good. So it cannot be a noun or a pronoun. It cannot be a noun or a pronoun. It must be a verb or a participle. Now, does facta is facta declined into cases? Does facta, if you think of the word, and this is going to get very difficult because participles are complicated. If you think of the meaning of the word facta, can it be expressed in different cases? The answer would be yes, okay? Because a participle is not like a verb in that it describes a person, place, or thing. So facta means something that is made, something that is made. And so can we say of something that is made? Yes. Can we say to or for something that is made? Yes. So it has cases, and therefore it must be a participle. So facta is a participle. All right. So we're out of time here, and I know that's a lot of information, but what I am pretty sure of, based on your answers, is that you're starting to see how we work through the process of elimination to identify the parts of speech. Let me ask you one last question to finish up, because this is really, I think, the most important step in identifying parts of speech. When you look at a word in Latin and you have to identify the part of speech, and you have a translation to help you so you know what it means, what's the first question? And I don't want you, don't answer before you think about this. What's the first question that you should ask when you look at a Latin word, when you begin to identify its part of speech? What's the first question you should ask? What's the first question? Take your time, think. Very good. Okay, very good. Perfect. Okay, does it have cases? Does it have forms? That's exactly right. All right, that's the first question, because if you can answer that, you can limit it to just 4 of the parts of speech. So that's right. Does it have forms? If you're not sure if it has different forms, how can you test whether it has different forms? What's a trick you can use to test if it has different forms? What's a test you can use? Very good. The dictionary. Look it up in a dictionary. If the word is not in the dictionary, then you know it must have different forms. Okay, so good. So I'm going to stop there. That's a good overview of the process of elimination and how we use it to identify parts of speech. What I'd like you to do, like I said last week, is I'd like you to start practicing this all the time. So if you're working on a Latin reading lesson and you see that I've identified a part of speech, I'd like you to look at it and say, do I understand why it's this part of speech? Don't just see that it is that part of speech, but do you understand why I labeled it that part of speech? So make sure you keep these definitions of the parts of speech in view. Test yourself when you see a new word. Try to figure out for yourself what part of speech is, and then you can look at the lesson and see if you got it right. But I think after this, you should get more comfortable identifying parts of speech, and after a while, it gets pretty easy. But I will give you one warning before we leave here. It's possible for a Latin word to be more than one part of speech. Okay, so sometimes it's confusing because a word can actually be an adjective noun in one place and a pronoun in a different place, maybe even a preposition or a conjunction in another place. So there are some words based on their meanings and how they're used in a sentence that they can actually act as different parts of speech. So it's not that simple. When you look at a word in a certain sentence, you've got to ask, what part of speech is this word in this sentence? So it can get a little more complicated. And sometimes you'll have to look up in a dictionary or something to figure it out because it's almost impossible. All right. So that's all for this lesson on parts of speech. As I said, I recorded this. So if you'd like to review it in the future, I'll post a link to this video on the Latin grammar course, probably on the student forum, or under the parts of speech lesson, but you can find it there, so you can review it. But I hope that's helpful. And like I said, test yourself, see if you can correctly identify parts of speech in the future. And you can use this in English too, but English has a little different setup for parts of speech, but in Latin, it's very helpful. All right, so that's all for today. If you have any other questions, post them in the chat right now, and I'll hang out for a few minutes and answer them. Otherwise, we're all done. You guys can get back to your work today. All right, God bless you all. Take care.